The Concepts That Shaped the 21st Century by A.C. Grayling. Currently on page 19, and I'm just going to go like this. The next concept is anarchism. So I'm going to read anarchism, and I think it's a couple pages. The next concept will be animal rights. Okay, so let's see if I can get this as a decent whatever. Anarchy literally means without ruler or government, and denotes a political arrangement in which there is no framework of laws or. Well, I'm gonna start this over. I need to just smoothly. All right, anarchism. Anarchy literally means without ruler or government, and denotes a political arrangement in which there is no framework of laws or a governing authority. Anarchism is a theory that advocates anarchy in this sense. It is a theory held by those who argue for abolition of the state, defined as a body which exists to maintain a compulsory legal order. Anarchists argue that organic communities will emerge from the common sense of people opposed to living under any form of authority other than what they impose on themselves. Colloquially, anarchy means riotous disorder and mess, and it is generally believed on the basis of reasonable assumptions about human nature that anarchy, in the first strict sense, would all too soon degenerate into anarchy in the second sense, with might quickly becoming right and human life reverting to the solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short state described by Thomas Hobbes as pertaining to the supposed anarchic situation of mankind before government and laws, when what prevailed was a war of all against all. War of all against all. Anarchists reply that even if one cynically refused to accept the bonds of friendship and affection might actuate communal behavior, even the basest self-interest dictates that free individuals would have to set up relationships of mutual assistance so that order would spontaneously emerge in communities of self-governing people. Anthropologists about the Kalahari Bushmen and some others aside, there are few examples of societies that can be described as anarchies, except briefly and usually in the aftermath of war or other major disaster. For example, for periods during the French Revolution, the Spanish Civil War, and Somalia towards the end of the 20th century. It is hard, therefore, to judge the validity of psychological and sociological claims implicit in or optimistically assumed by anarchist theory. Nevertheless, one can canvass some probabilities to test whether an anarchic arrangement would be likely to work as follows. Contemporary advanced societies function fairly smoothly in general within a framework of institutions which give assurance to most people that they can rely on arrangements they have made, contracts they have entered into, and services they depend on. This fact is overlooked by most people because of the very success of its operation. Yet, it is the result of its being constituted by the enforceable rule of law and well-regulated normal government. In short, the opposite of anarchy, either in colloquial sense of disorder or in strict sense of absence of government. In place of what makes for such order, anarchists propose a society constituted by a sum of voluntary associations, unconstrained and unregulated by anything beyond individual goodwill. But the central weakness in anarchism, thus characterized, is this: individuals are to some degree self-interested, and not all self-interest is indefensible or irrational. The same applies to groups, such as families or tribes. Sympathies are limited and so are resources. Competition between individuals and groups is therefore inevitable. Competition can and often does lead to conflict. Therefore, unless there are rules, enforceable and carrying sanctions to ensure the regulation of competition and a just resolution of conflicts should they arise, the outcome will be that the strong will trample the weak and injustice will be general. As this suggests, the anarchist belief that people can live in unregulated mutual harmony is touching but naive. To this inadequate moral psychology, they about freedom, failing to see that the freedoms worth having require protection because of their vulnerability. And that it is precisely in pursuit of genuine liberties that humans congregate into civil society and agree enforceable laws. The anarchist mistake is to think that because tyranny is hateful, the state should be abolished. A more rational idea is to abolish not that state, but tyranny, by making the state fairer and freer, thus protecting its members from the depredations of the greedy and the vile, who are too numerous among us to make anarchism even a remotely serious option. A close anarchism is libertarianism, not liberalism, a fact that shows how political wings bend back so far that they touch. For whereas libertarianism is typically associated with right-wing attitudes, most forms of anarchism, for example, anarcho-communism, anarcho-syndicalism, are typically regarded as lying at the other end of the spectrum. Libertarians, free markets, minimal government, gun ownership, and the undesirability of welfare. Thus latter on the ground that people have not only a right to be free and minimally governed by others, thus the correlative obligation to accept the responsibility this implies. This latter view is at least consistent, but it overlooks rather harshly the unequal endowments and histories of individuals. Facts which privilege the few at the expense of the many, among which latter are a further many who cannot benefit from all the opportunities that competitive societies offer. Political philosophies that place social justice and the obligations of communities to their members at or near the center of attention accordingly opposed to this aspect of libertarianism. Libertarianism's main home is the United States. Votaries claim that Thomas Jefferson and the founding fathers were proponents of their view. In their preferences for economic policy, they find inspiration in the writings of Milton Friedman, Friedrich Hayek, and Ludwig von Mises. In Britain, an apostle of this view was Mrs. Thatcher, who went so far as to deny that there is such a thing as society, believing instead that what are misdescribed by the name of congeries of individuals busily at work furthering their own interests. For those in a good position, such views are agreeable. For those concerned about people who are not in a good position, they are deeply uncongenial. This last remark touches on an important political divide between outlooks that differ and the relative importance they attach to society, to social injustice, and individualism. Anarchism and libertarianism, in fact, lie on the same side of that divide, namely on the individualist side. It is an oddity of political theorizing and activism that views so opposed in other respects as these two should, in their most central impulses, be so alike. The really big difference between them is this, that libertarians desire to see strong policing of those who do not profit from libertarianism, so that those who do so profit can enjoy those profits unmolested. Thus, libertarianism is selective and partial, and the anarchy it advocates, while anarchism is more consistent and inclusive.